This video is mostly going to be a commentary piece about the status upgrade or defensive renewal, if you will, that the Detroit Lions have undergone on that side of the football. It's not really going to focus on the Lions draft from this past weekend, which was obviously a very different cast or selection of players than the historic group that was selected in 2023. What I'm going to do here is try to highlight or summarize, I guess, how radically different the Lions' defensive talent is going to be in 2024. And I'm sure it's been talked about in multiple places. This is mostly going to be commentary, as I said. There will be some film later on that's just to be illustrative. It won't be necessarily a film study at all. When you look at some of the situations where Aaron Glenn's group last year was just outgunned, even late in the season, but still able to compete because of a tactical shift. Even in the NFC Championship game lost to the 49ers, Detroit gets 2 stops in the first half. Also, fortunate missed field goal by San Francisco. Takes a 21-7 lead at the half on the road. There was tactical decisions made last year, if you ask me, by the defensive staff in the last 4 to 5 weeks of the regular season to just get more pressure on the quarterback. Basically, bring more numbers in the blitz. We're just talking about sheer math here, a numbers increase. And it worked, by and large. But that also opened up the possibility to allow big plays in the passing game. And that did occur often. Detroit allowed 23.2 points per game in 2023, regular season. Good for 23rd in the NFL. But they allowed 330 passing yards on average in the last 6 games of the year. Now, those games were against the Vikings 2 times, the Cowboys, Rams, Bucks, and then the 49ers. 4 of those teams finished with winning records. You may say, well, Coach, those are good football teams. Everyone except the Vikings made it to the postseason. So the tactic worked from the standpoint of winning football games. They were able to hold each of those teams to 24 points or less that I just named, except for the 34-31 loss to San Francisco. In my opinion, the standard in 2021 is higher. And I'm talking about 2 or maybe 3 levels higher. If you think about it in terms of points per game allowed, what happened last year should be considered the absolute floor for the unit that they have put together, the players they've acquired for next season. What should you expect, or what do you expect, I guess, as a fan, first of all? Can Aaron Glenn, Dan Campbell, and the rest of the defensive staff, how many points can they shave off? Let's do it that way. Per game in their average over a 17-game regular season. I think it's possible you're talking about 3. Maybe a little more if everyone's healthy and things fall the Lions' way. Meaning they're in the lead a lot, like occurred in 2023, and the defense is playing from a position of known outcomes in terms of run-pass. The only place you can argue that maybe there hasn't been a substantial upgrade is outside linebacker or D-end. The Lions have only added Marcus Davenport. Now, he is a former first-round pick with 23.5 career sacks in 67 career games. So 1 sack every 3 games, roughly. They also signed CFL pass rusher Matthew Betts and then re-signed James Houston IV. Davenport's only 27. He posted a 9-sack season in 2021. That'll be 3 seasons ago as the 2024 campaign begins. That was with the Saints. He signed a 1-year contract with Detroit, $6.5 million after only playing 4 games in 2023 because of injury. James Houston IV, one of my personal favorites, somewhat similar situation, didn't register a single sack in 2023 after that amazing year as a rookie. Injuries played a role last year, for sure, for James Houston IV. But the fact is, Lions fans would like a completely overwhelming and dominant defense to be rolled out there on the field 17 times plus in 2024. And you just don't have that on the other side opposite Aiden Hutchinson. He's the only place where, that's the only place where you can complain about the roster, I guess, is defensive end, outside linebacker opposite Aiden Hutchinson. Now, I won't, because personally, I believe in James Houston IV, and I think Davenport looks like a guy who can still play. Now, when I say that, I'm referring to film from 2022, because, again, Davenport only played 4 games last year. So I guess it depends on how long is your memory. Meaning, do you think those 2 guys over on the other side can get the job done? Otherwise, besides that opposite D end or opposite edge defender side, what Brad Holmes and the front office have tried to assemble on the defensive side of the ball is elite. It's an elite group. It's not an elite unit yet. They haven't done a single practice or game, obviously. I think they've done it. I think they have done it. I think they've acquired the talent that puts them in position to be among the best Lions defenses in recent history. Now, I didn't intentionally research this, to be honest with you, so I don't know. I'm certainly not mining for comments. What's the best Lions defense in recent history? I'm talking about going back through like the 80s. Let's do it that way. I'm not talking about, all time. Since the 80s forward, the only one I can remember is like 2014, 15, 16, somewhere in that range. And they have Reggie Bush and Ndamukong Suh. I have no idea where they ranked, but I thought it was a really good defense. And here's the only reason I know. It's one of the first years I didn't coach high school football. So I was able to watch more NFL than in previous seasons where I just didn't have time and or refused to watch the NFL at all, refused to watch any other games except my own. Anyway, I think this position is the only possible relative weakness for a group that, if they play to their potential, in my opinion, could be among the NFL's best at the end of the year in terms of statistically. There's a lot to do between now and then. You have to let me know what you think of those thoughts. And if you have an answer to my question, what would be the best Detroit Lions defense since the 80s onward? So talent-wise, when you talk about adding the guys they've added, and we will have film coming up here in a moment just to show about 6 or 8 plays of some of these new guys, added DJ Reader, Davenport, Carlton Davis III, Amik Robinson. Now through the draft, Terrion Arnold, Ennis Rakestraw Jr., and Mekhi Wingo, the defensive tackle from LSU. The upgrade as a collective is incredible. How many new starters will it be, in your opinion? Again, I'm not trying to engagement farm or force you to comment, but I think it's at least 4, maybe 5, but I'm going to call it 4, with Reader as one of the best run-stopping D tackles in the league, clearly. Davis III, Davenport over on the other side, and then Arnold or Robertson. All right, one of those two will be starting, but really playing a lot is what matters the most. I'm not talking about playing the first play of the game, starter. All of those guys, all the guys in the picture, all the guys that I named, except for maybe Rakestraw, are going to be the primary defensive group of 16, 18, 20 players that are in on every personnel group and pretty much in on every snap. The guy that I want to start with, the guy that I think is the most important, is DJ Reader. And here's why. Don't be surprised. Well, you will be surprised. If he's healthy and he's available, he's a dominant force against a run. And you've probably seen the video at this point from other channels or social media or maybe my own. I think he's like the leadoff man for this defense in 2024. And what I mean when I say leadoff man is he'll create favorable situations by stopping the run on 1st and 2nd down. He'll create a whole bunch of 2nd and 8s and a whole bunch of 3rd and 5s where the play type is now predetermined, known. Now, he'll be off the field in a lot of those situations on 3rd and 5 because he's not the greatest pass rusher in the world, but he is one of the best run defenders in the NFL still. I don't think he's the best player on this Lions defense. Certainly not what I'm saying. I'm saying he may be the most important from a health standpoint of the new additions. Hutchinson is the guy. Hutchinson's the best player. It's ridiculous. He's on a historic track. I did see maybe Tuesday morning or something, a social media post or something about him being a disappointment through 2 seasons. Like what? He's had 2 years, 21 sacks, 33 quarterback hits. Actually, that's wrong. Those 33 quarterback hits last year. He has 48 quarterback hits in 2 seasons, along with 4 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles. All of that is in 34 regular season games. If a lot of Lions fans think he's disappointing, and I know you don't, there's a team in purple that I know and I love that would certainly take him. He also last year had 3 sacks, during the Lions' playoff run, where they nearly reached the Super Bowl. It's insane to even mention disappointment. He's a stud. But for the free agent and draft acquisitions, I think Reeder offers the most devastating importance for this team. This team's already good at stopping the run. And now they picked up a guy who will spearhead that effort. He'll make them maybe not exponentially better because they're already really good, but he will make them spectacular against a run to the standpoint that teams will be one-dimensional sooner in games. Instead of being one-dimensional late third quarter, fourth quarter, they'll become one-dimensional at times in the second quarter or maybe earlier in the third quarter. You'll get more pass rush opportunities because of DJ Reeder, and that's how I think he impacts the team the most from a sack number standpoint. Look, people who had to deal with him as a Bengal when he was playing for Cincinnati, or maybe coaches who played against him, those guys know. And I hope he stays healthy so everyone else, all of you listening, can find out. He's a supreme run-stopping D-tackle, and his health basically just means more pass rush opportunities. I feel like that's obvious. The corner group is where you have the most well-known improvements that have been made from a positional standpoint. And this is no criticism for the guys who played there last year. Jerry Jacobs, Kendall Vildor, Cam Sutton, others, they were just overmatched at times. I will use an example to illustrate that, and I don't mean it in a disrespectful manner. When the Ravens hosted the Lions in Week 7, I believe it was the Saturday before the game, it was announced that Jacobs had suffered some type of injury. That was a huge loss at the time. I mentioned it in our Ravens Discord that evening or maybe early Sunday morning, saying, look, guys, this is a huge development. If Will Harris is going to play corner for Jacobs, Will Harris is that to defend the pass on that side of the field, that ability is basically gone. And it was. And I don't mean any shade or disrespect towards Harris either. And that was because of Jerry Jacobs' absence. Compare him to the four guys you see on the screen right there. You've added two veteran corners in the caliber of Davis III and Robertson, who's just extremely tough and gritty. I guess I need to find another word there. That one gets thrown around a lot for Detroit players. But he's a competitor. And I believe he's going to find his way on the field. Robertson, I mean, I just going off the 5 or 6 games I used to create a video when the Lions signed him, he's a high-level competitor. He's nasty. And he's going to get on the field in big moments somewhere, wherever that is. Now that they drafted Terrion Arnold, it's truly going to be, as Brad Holmes described it, a bloodbath to determine not just who starts, but who gets on the field. You're going to have to be incredibly sharp to start, to get on the field, and be there consistently because there's good players behind you. And depth has been created in the event of injuries. The options for corner are just a different dimension. So as much as I think Reeder is important with his health, these guys, this group being created by Brad Holmes in the front office, it's just absolute. Look, none of these guys are lockdown corners on the outside from the standpoint of they're going to pick the quarterback off 5-6 times a season. That's not who they are. They're not all ball hawk guys. I do think Robertson has great ball skills. And I do think Arnold is classy and effective in every single coverage. And he will dissuade people from throwing at him constantly. I don't anticipate, however, either one of these guys being someone that's absolutely ignored because of their ball skills. They will be in great coverage relationship, which is more important because I think it'll cause quarterbacks to get to the next read. I really, truly think Detroit's going to expand upon their 41 sacks from last year, possibly by a number of +10 or +12. The quality of the coverage is going to have an impact there. The scheme, don't get me wrong, could evolve, but the level of athlete here from the corner position is just different. It's just totally different. The group is at least 2 levels better than the corners who finished the season on the road in San Francisco in the NFC Championship game. Let's do it that way. And even in that game, you're within 3 or 4 breaks or decisions or situations from winning that game. The interception or the fumble by Gibbs. The third down pass that deflects off a defender's head and Ayuk catches it. I know it's a 10-point deficit when Goff hits Jamison Williams for the touchdown in the back of the end zone. But in reality, that game was about 6 minutes or one score away from being Detroit's, period. You know it as a fan, or you knew it immediately after it was over. Expect to be there again with the level of defensive talent that's now here to supplement St. Brown, Goff, Gibbs, Montgomery, and Ben Johnson's offense. So in terms of the veteran talent that you got, I've already kind of covered in film study form previously, but I really like the physicality and the intelligence of Carlton Davis III. The experience obviously is a factor as well. Robertson's sneaky tough. No matter where you put him, he's going to compete. He's going to make plays, whether it's nickel, outside corner. I think Arnold is what truly throws this group over the top. You've got a really classy outside corner. Also played, I think, about 23% of his snaps in the slot last year. So he moved around, traveled. So if you want to call it that, to play man, he can play them. He can match vertical routes. I do hope to get a Twitter study out this week on Arnold to share with you guys. I don't put college film on my YouTube channel for various reasons. So if you consider follow me on Twitter, there's a link to my Twitter account or X account in the description. I also like Rakestraw's game a lot. Let's compare him to Jacobs and Vildor, who I thought Vildor played with a lot of quality last year in terms of his competitiveness. Did Vildor make plays? No, but there was times where Vildor was in good coverage relationship and just wasn't able to finish the plays. I don't think he had athletic limitations. Those limitations do not exist compared to even Rakestraw, Carlton Davis III, Robertson, or Arnold. You're talking about guys who, at the top of the spectrum in terms of athletes, even at the corner position, there's just a better athlete who's now at corner for Detroit in 2024. Basically, the floor as a DB group, whether you're talking about outside corner, whether you're talking about nickel slot, the floor is higher than the ceiling was last year. And that's the overall point that I'm going to try to make is you're 2 or 3 levels above the highest potential from last year's group. And that will only help Aaron Glenn make his calls on 3rd and 5. It opens up, if you ask me, a wider range of possibilities and gives quarterbacks pause to not assure them of what the coverage is. Especially if you get 2 things. Healthy and active versions of Davenport and James Houston IV over on the other side for those 3rd downs. Glenn, if those 2 things occur, maybe they're big ifs for you, or big whats. If those 2 things occur, he will not have to call as many blitzes, as many 5- and 6-man pressures. Again, it's contingent upon Davenport and Houston IV being healthy and guys who can get some pressure. Organically, maybe 4-man rushes or some standard 5-man blitzes. I don't think you need to talk about the impact that Hutchinson's going to have. It's obvious. It's going to be similar to what he did in 2022 and 2023. Those 2 rushers, Davenport and Houston, the increased number of opportunities that I think DJ Reader's presence will create, and then the cornerback upgrades, it opens up a wider net of possibilities for Aaron Glenn on 1st and 10, on 3rd and 5, or 3rd and 8. He can be conservative if he wants. I guess I'll look at it this way, or try to explain it this way. Last year, when they started to bring Melifonwu on all these blitzes, it was unpredictable at first, right? When they unleashed him in week 15 and week 16, he put up, I think he ended up totaling 5 sacks between the regular season and playoffs. They can choose to be aggressive when they want to, or they can choose to sit back and rush only 4 in a typical style because they'll have better coverage element, more athletic corners, a more variable style, hopefully. And I think it's going to be easy for them to improve upon the 41 sacks they put up in 2023. That number, 41 sacks in the regular season, was only better than 9 other teams in the NFL. And only one of those 9 teams that they had more sacks than made the playoffs. In fact, they didn't have more sacks. It was the Rams, who also had 41. All of this is related, but the pass rush consistency in 2023 and the lack of talent at corner, specifically the outside corners, That put a low ceiling on the Lions defense. And I think that 23.2 points per game allowed reflects that. So my expectation for 24 is going to go like this. Now, you may think this is inflated, or this may not line up with what other content creators or other Detroit media have discussed. Let's say you get a healthy version of DJ Reader for 14, 16 games, and you get Marcus Davenport and James Houston IV, who give you 4 to 6, or maybe one of them gets 8 sacks each. So one guy gets 4 and one guy gets 8, or maybe they each get 6. Those two can absolutely give you that from a talent standpoint. You'll have the lead often because your offense doesn't turn the football over consistently and scores points. The guys at corner play to their base potential, not their ceiling. I'm not even talking about the ceiling of that group, just their base potential for Davis III, Robertson, Arnold, and Rakestraw. So I'm not going to compare the expected performance for 2024 to the expected performance from 2023. I'm going to say that the ceiling for last year's defense, the 2023 group, the best version of their group, doesn't even match up to the average expectation for the talent level you have for this upcoming season. Now, that's assuming health. I know that's a variable. Reader usually plays 14, 15 games. In 1 year, he played 10 games. Carlton Davis III usually plays 13 or 14 games in a 16-game season. He's been around for 6 years. I think 1 year he played 10. Otherwise, it's 13, 14 games a season. And the cool thing is, even in the event that Carlton Davis is out for a while, or DJ Reader is out for a while, Brad Holmes has already built in depth at those positions. Corner, drafted Arnold and Rakestraw. And he brought back Vildor and a couple of other competitive guys from last year who will certainly be backups, competing just to make the squad or be active on game day. So my comparison is not just the roster talent. My comparison is the ceiling from last year doesn't match up to the average expectation for 2024, in my opinion. Or that's what I'm trying to do, saying that the best performances from 2023 should be considered average for Aaron Glenn's group in 2024. That's how elevated the confidence level or the projection should be, in my opinion. I don't know if other film study sites for Detroit or YouTube channels are summarizing it in the same way. So I understand my opinion may be an outlier here. I really don't have time to pay attention to other film study channels, even in Baltimore. It's not a disrespectful thing. It's not even a choice. I just don't have time. I think last year's team, the ceiling of that group, they could not reach what this year's group can, even under typical circumstances. I think that should be the main story of this team, besides Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn returning, obviously. Post-draft, with a little bit of time left to maybe add more talent, they've just not built a roster well to expand upon last year. I think they've built one that's aiming for an incredibly high defense, the likes of which I don't think Detroit has seen for at least 8 or 10 years, somewhere in that area. You guys feel free to let me know what you think of the video that I produced. I didn't show a lot of film. My apologies for that. These are some of the thoughts I was able to come up with after the draft, and courtesy of some of the people that are in my Discord/Patreon who will offer their opinion and kind of help me guide the content, which is what I really like to do, and get feedback from people while I'm in the process of producing or creating something and try to craft it in a manner that I think Detroit Lions fans will appreciate. You guys, let me know what you think of the video and my thoughts here. If you agree with me or disagree, consider commenting. And if you think other Lions fans would enjoy this content, please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.